It's Wednesday night, and you know what that means. We continue to be tardy to the party. But as Eric Bischoff himself would say, we're back and better than ever. And as always, I'm your friendly neighbourhood Carl. And yes, your Tony sense is tingling, because joining me as always, it's Anthony. Anthony, say hi to the peeps.
Hi, peeps. And Carl, of course. Hi, Carl.
And
How
me.
are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Not too bad, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. And obviously, we've got a fantastically polarising world of wrestling this week, haven't we? Like, nothing's divided fans more than people maybe working for other shows, which is just, you know,
Imagine.
Someone maybe changing their job has been like the biggest thing of controversy on the internet wrestling community I've seen in a while.
How dare they?
Naturally.
That's why.
How dare they? Motherfuckers. Anyway. We'll talk about that properly, Carl, when we get to the Ringside Report. But you know what we need to do first?
Oh, no, I didn't know. Do you know? Because Road Dogg.
Oh, you didn't know?
There we go. Did it. Took a while, but it did it.
That's the one.
So, Anthony, since, spoilers, we're going to be talking about Eddie Guerrero in our premiere edition of the Superstar Spotlight. I felt it was only right to do an Eddie fact this week. And as we know, Eddie comes from a great lineage in pro wrestling. His dad, his uncle being absolutely huge in Mexico. Obviously his brothers, cousins, and now even his daughter are involved in wrestling today. But how old do you think Eddie Guerrero was when he had his first wrestling match in front of a live audience, Anthony?
It's either going to be really old or really young. And it can't be really old. So, 2.
Yeah, you're right. No, it's not 2. Slightly older. He was 9, Anthony, 9 years old when Eddie Guerrero had his first ever match against his dad, Gory Guerrero, and it was a 2-on-1 handicap match. He teamed up with his cousin Chavo, who was just 6 at the time. And what makes it even more impressive is they were able to pick up the victory, beating Gory Guerrero, a feat not achieved by many in the business, to be honest. So, yeah, there you have it. Eddie been frog splashing since he was a tadpole. And that was this week's little known fact of the week. And here's Road Dogg, hopefully less tardy than last time, to sing us out.
Oh, you didn't know?
Perfect. You did a good job.
Did you know? I didn't realise, by the way, that Eddie, at one time in his career, or early on in his career, actually wrestled under Gory Guerrero Jr.
I did not know that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I knew he was Black
he had
Tiger.
a few different names, yeah, but he actually went by Latino Heat at certain times as well. But so it's not like he didn't change his names up a bit. But I'd never realised he actually went by Gory Guerrero Jr. at any point.
Me neither. The more you know. The more
you know. So, Carl, Ringside Report. Shall we just start with probably the biggest one of the week?
Let's do it. Kick it off.
Oh, yeah, I've got to do the headlines first. Okay, let's do the headlines. Right, so, Carl, coming up tonight in the Ringside Report, we have the potential of CM Punk and Daniel Bryan joining AEW. We have one Corey? Why am I saying Corey? We have one Cody Rhodes calling Triple H a role model. We have Braun Strowman attending a bare knuckle boxing event. We have Matt Cardona becoming the new GCW champion. We have Jeff Hardy testing positive for COVID-19. We have WWE announcing USA versus Vince McMahon as a series. We have Emi Sakura joining AEW full-time. We have Nikki Ash being booed at house shows. We have Britt Baker breaking her right wrist at Fyter Fest. And we have WWE introducing a new robot mascot on Raw.
Of course they are.
Of course they are. That just seems like exactly something they would do. Yeah. So, as I say, Carl, right back to where I was a minute ago. Should we start with the biggest one?
Let's start with the biggest one. It seems to have been somewhat polarizing in the wrestling world. So, news broke probably almost a week ago now, because we're late in what we do. But still, if you haven't heard about it,
everyone else has had their moan.
Fightful Select dropped a massive bombshell that one and only CM Punk was in serious talks with AEW. Now, later in the same day, Bodyslam.net reported that Daniel Bryan had actually signed with AEW. So, yeah, basically all the shit hitteth the fan last week, and it was quite interesting, really, in terms of the reaction we had. So, the belief is that the original plan was going to be holding off Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, whatever he's going to be called, probably Danielson, until after All Out takes place to kind of set up some new storylines. But now with the announcement of Punk potentially joining the company as well, we know that All Out takes place in Chicago. And so, it would make sense for, the Chicago-made Punk to show up in Chicago. So, yeah, we don't know what that means for Bryan Danielson, whether that means they will accelerate his debut or...
I don't think we can ever have an all-out where we... Because I recall, was it the last all-out? How many all-outs have we had now?
Well, we had Shake It All About. We'd had...
In, out, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember there was an all-out, and because they used the stars, the red stars on the logo, everyone was like, it means Punk, it's a hint of Punk. Do you remember that? And that was like last year or the year before.
Oh, yeah.
It seems All Out is like constantly connected with CM Punk. Like, it's going to be, this is the time. And to be honest, like, I really want Punk to turn up just because it'll mean he's actually fucking followed through with something for once. Because I'm sick of the hints. I'm sick of, like, little hints or suggestions on Twitter all the time. Just fucking come back or don't, man.
I don't know. I saw his UFC debut. It looked like he followed through. Tell you that. But yeah, I mean, it would be pretty huge if true. Because Punk, as you say, has been a bit of a troll. He's teased a lot of stuff. He's also, consistently brought up stuff about wrestling and like, oh yeah, maybe I should go back, or oh, I'm never going back, and it's always,
you never know.
It's always fucking going on about it, basically. So he's a bit of a wild card if he does now finally decide to turn up in AEW, because obviously he's tried other endeavors. I think he's done some stuff in the comic book world. He's done obviously a UFC
by all accounts,
attempt.
People look at the UFC stuff, but by all accounts, he's done quite well in the comic book stuff. As is his missus.
Yeah.
Go on.
What I was going to say is she obviously AJ. Does she illustrate them? Does she write them? I know that she's got.
I wasn't expecting the follow-up questions, Carl.
Tell me more.
Something with comics.
Okay.
No, I know you know more? She's found some success in the comics as well, but I couldn't tell you what it is she does. Right. Apologies to AJ, because I'm sure I would be interested. I've just not got around to looking into the comics at all. Right, we're busy, man. We spend week after week bitching about wrestling. You think we've got time for this? Anyway, so for me, I think Punk would be, realistically, he'd be a great addition. He was a massive deal in WWE, and he's definitely going to bring eyes to AEW. It's the type of signing that AEW should definitely make. I think someone likened both CM Punk and Daniel as being like that's going to move the needle, as it were. And I think they're totally right. If they sign either one or both of these guys, it's going to make a huge impact to AEW.
I mean,
they're already killing it. But
well, the people who haven't just been absolutely appalled by the potential of this happening, the ones who actually seem open to it, have said, like, even if they don't watch AEW today, that would make them at least watch it and see what it's all about. So I think you're right that these are kind of needle-moving acquisitions.
Yeah.
And we talk about Punk,
getting people who probably haven't watched it at all to look at it, and if they find something in there that they like beyond Punk and Bryan, then they're going to stay.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Punk. Obviously, he was super successful and was obviously white hot before he decided to step away. But then on the reverse of that, you've got Bryan Danielson, who was in the main event of WrestleMania this year. Like, he hasn't even been away. Like, he's still white hot. He's like one of the top names.
Come off the back end of like Roman Reigns and Edge.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it'd be absolutely phenomenal for the company to get this level of talent.
I think it's fucking laughable though that Daniel Bryan's not been with WWE for a few months now, and there was talks of him going all over the place, going to Japan here, there, and I think no one said a fucking word. You know, no one had a problem. No one messaged him privately. No one went on his social media and gave him hassle or threatened him. But the minute you mention AEW, suddenly he's a cunt and he's a horrible traitor and he should never have done what he's done and he should show more respect to WWE. And it's like, where'd all this shit come from? Because he's not been there for a while, you know, guys.
Yeah,
Like,
it's almost like fans are fickle.
It's almost like they hate AEW, and it didn't really matter where he went as long as it weren't there.
Yeah, we were joking before we came on the air today, just kind of about that, just saying like, you know, there's always got to be like obsessive fanboys for stuff. Like I made the comparison of like PlayStation and Xbox. You know what I mean? It's like it's so the same with like WWE and AEW. It's like, why can't you just like playing games? Why can't you just like watching wrestling? Who cares? Why have you got to be so into one that the other one is terrible? It doesn't make any sense.
And do you know what the reality of it is? It's like this is just different flavors of ice cream. Like at the end of the day, it's all ice cream. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true.
Why do people get so fucking angry about this shit? Because it just made me think about it when you're saying about the analogy of like the PlayStation to Xbox. Like it's everyone just wants to play a game, but it really matters what console you're using.
Yeah.
Like it's fucking weird. Like we're not all wrestling fans. It really matters what show you watch. Why? Just enjoy wrestling, guys.
It doesn't make much sense, does it? But I mean, I can sense a new merch opportunity there. Wrestling, it's all ice cream. I like it.
I know, but if only said gravy, it would have been that a classic saying. It's all gravy.
True. Yep.
But it is, isn't it? Like it's literally just a bunch of grown men going, "Well, I prefer chocolate." It's like, calm down.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I mean, pretty big seismic shift in the wrestling landscape if this comes off.
Can I ask?
I think
there's a slight spoiler because we haven't talked about AEW. But or did we? I don't know anymore.
Sorry,
I was expecting a bigger surprise than, and people might come at me for this, but I didn't know who he was. This is why it's not a surprise for me. I was expecting a bigger surprise than Nick Gage.
Okay.
And I feel like I was expecting, because of all the speculation, I was like, oh, one of them's going to show up like now, sooner rather than later. And that is my own fault that I put it in my head, like that's going to happen. And then this guy comes out who I'd not heard of. Again, no disrespect to him. I'd never heard of him. So I'm like, oh.
See, I was completely on the other side of that because I thought, you know, the 5 labors of Jericho was just all going to be Pinnacle members. And I was just like, oh, it's going to be so drawn out. So for it to be anybody but a member of the Pinnacle, I was quite happy. But luckily for me, I saw the episode of Dark Side of the Ring about Nick Gage quite recently.
Yeah, because he'd featured on it, hadn't he?
Yeah, and obviously he was the one who nearly killed David Arquette. If you watch David Arquette's documentary, he's the one who Arquette was like, don't cut me. And he stabbed him in the jugular with a piece of glass or something. So, yeah, I was aware of him. But yeah, I think we'll talk about it when we get onto Dynamite. But I
did not know that.
I fear for Jericho's life. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely going to move the needle if they kill him on air.
Oh, they'll move the needle right into his fucking throat, probably. So yeah, but yeah, I think this would be huge. I'm excited to see how it all plays out, and obviously with the news of them getting Punk and Danielson potentially, does that change the debut of Danielson? Will it become much sooner? Will it be at All Out as well? Will any of it even happen? Who knows? But it's an exciting time to be alive.
I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions. I'm gonna say something first, and I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions. So the first thing is, how do you think? I've decided to phrase this as a question as well. This isn't my question. Well, how do you think CM Punk could play in AEW? Because, and I'm not talking about AEW are more like the company all round, but they have their fan base don't have a frustrated side just yet, if you know what I mean. Like, CM Punk played off the frustrated WWE fans really well, in the sense of like he's not getting the opportunity, and he was pointing out all the things that were annoying us WWE fans with WWE, and that was a lot of the point, and that's a lot of what the Summer of Punk became. In fact, the pipe bomb was infamously just him airing his frustrations on air. So how do you think it would play in a company where it's not even been around long enough for us to have a lot of frustrations? Because he can't just play it as Punk coming in like, oh, I'm the voice of the voiceless, and I've got issues. It's like, well, with what? Like, I'm intrigued to see how he'd even play in AEW.
Do you know what? It's a fucking excellent question. I honestly, yeah, I agree. Obviously, there isn't really that level of AEW fans who are just, oh, fucking so tired of this product because it's still so new. So I think all that we could potentially see is CM Punk still being, like the other company and like the fans who watched the crap in the other company, and kind of coming
I
out
do
from that
worry
angle.
about that. I worry about that.
Mm. Yeah, it's a concern, isn't it? Because you don't want. I mean, if you ask anybody in AEW, there isn't a war. AEW doesn't care about WWE, and it's just they want to put the best show out week on week and beat themselves as opposed to beating anyone else. But then I don't know. You've seen a couple of stuff there where you think, is that really the case? Like, would they love to
If you
stick
ask
it to
any
WWE?
WWE people, though, it's like Vince has probably never even heard of AEW.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, no, I think it's a fucking fantastic question. I honestly don't know the answer. I don't know whether he will have as much impact by not being the voice of the voiceless, and whatever character he adopts or
I think
whatever
that's
his
the thing,
agenda
because like
is.
as good a wrestler as he is, and he obviously was around Ring of Honor, and he was a really talented guy. Genuinely, that what really propelled him was that bitter character, that pissed off bitter character, because he was echoing how a lot of people felt at the time. So I'm just wondering whether he can find a character that can resonate as well. And yeah, I've been mulling that over the last couple of days. Like, I don't know, I'm like fearful of his return just because I don't think it's gonna land in any way like it probably should.
Yeah, he might come at it from an angle of like going after the elite and being like you guys trying to run the place and stuff when no
Yeah.
one cares about you guys. It's not about you and
Well,
stuff
how
like
can
that.
there be an elite without Punk kind of thing?
Yeah. So yeah, who knows, but no, it was going to be interesting. For all we know, this is just a load of horseshit, and it's never going to be the case anyway. And everyone, will be, it could even hinder Daniel Bryan's,
I'll be honest,
debut.
Khan's hurt me before when he's overhyped stuff, and it's not been what we thought, and you're like, oh, for fuck. That was, you hyped us up too much.
Yeah.
And my other question, Carl, before we move on, was just simply to ask, are there any particular matches, because this is exactly what Bryan wanted to leave for in some senses, are there any particular matchups that you are dying to see from either Punk versus or Daniel Bryan versus?
I mean, obviously, Danielson has got some history with Kenny Omega, which I haven't really watched or been a part of. I've seen clips of them, in serious indie kind of buildings from back in the day. So it'd be great to see them do it on a bigger stage. But I think that's the beauty of it. They're coming into a roster that's got a good mix of kind of young up and coming talent and some senior heads in there with a lot of experience. So there's a lot of dream matches that could be had for all of them. I think they'll be coming to AEW knowing full well that they are going to be the big stars, but their job will be to make new talent. Think of whether you're a huge fan of him or not, but like Darby Allin. You think of Darby Allin versus either of these two, and straight away it's
Actually,
like,
to be honest, like some of the issue I had with Darby Allin was like he's such a small guy, and I'm not being like, I don't want to be that kind of guy, but I've always been that kind of guy. Like when you have Rey Mysterio versus Big Show, like
Yeah.
the matchup's just too odd for me. So Darby Allin, I just think it's hard to put him with certain people and it feel realistic. That's the issue I've always had. That being said, I wouldn't have an issue with like Darby Allin versus Daniel Bryan. I think they could both put on a fucking banger of a match together, to be fair.
I've got another two for you as well. So Jungle
Hold on.
Boy versus Bryan, I would like to see,
Yeah,
and Malachi Black and Punk.
I think Black and Punk could definitely have some good work together.
So both.
And they kind of have that. They've been compared so often that it kind of makes sense that they go against each other.
And I don't think I mean, I've never seen it. I don't know whether it has happened before in other places, but that could be something that you build up quite nicely because Alistair isn't coming at it as like a proper vet. He never really had the chance in WWE to be like a main event star. So I think he's in it for the long haul as one of their top stars if they can get it right. So Punk could make him potentially. So yeah, I think there's loads of interesting stuff. We haven't even put MJF and Guevara and like literally everybody on the roster could have some decent matches with them. So
look at promo skills. Just MJF against Punk could be a boss shout just for how they can both talk.
Oh god, yeah. Yeah,
You wouldn't even need a match. You could just bitch at each other in a ring for an hour or so.
yeah. It's stuff like that which it gets you excited, and it will certainly hype a lot of matches with the way these guys are. So yeah, all I can hope is that we see it and it happens, and I'm here for it. I want to see it happen, and I want to see what impact it has. A lot of people have made the comparisons to when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash jumped ship over from WWF into WCW at the time. But I think this is bigger. I don't think Diesel or Razor Ramon were at the levels of Punk and Bryan when they jumped.
I'd probably disagree with you on Razor Ramon.
I would.
I don't think Diesel was. I think Razor Ramon was. I think he was white hot when he left.
Razor was never a world champ. He was only ever an Intercontinental champ. And even though he had the gimmick and he was over with the fans, he could never be considered as the top guy.
I'll take your point on the sort of the tier level, but in terms of like you say fandom, he was super over when he left. Like Diesel, not so much. He was Razor's buddy, wasn't he? Really, let's be honest. Like, no offense to Nash, he's a fucking legend, but like the bigger commodity out of the two of them at the time was Razor Ramon.
Yeah,
but I think the only argument I'd probably make for it being a slightly different level of impact, because I'd agree with you, this might be bigger, but at the same time, it's like one's coming out of a long stint away from WWE, and the other's coming out of a few months worth of not being in WWE. Like, they pretty much immediately went from one to the other, which.
Yeah, that's true.
Spun your head. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I don't think it'll have the same. I think it won't have the same sort of head spin effect.
No,
of being like, what the fuck.
They also had the heel turn that we thought we'd never see with Hogan as well. So obviously that combination of stuff that happened in WCW is very unlikely to happen again. But
unless we can somehow get Cena over there in the next few months and Cena takes the heel.
Yeah,
that could be our modern day NWO right there.
Don't even do it. This is why you get disappointed with Christian, Anthony. This is why. It's going to be Brock. It's going to be Cena. No, it was always fucking Christian. It was always Christian. Yeah, so basically, to end the news story, I'm excited. I want it to happen. Can't wait for it to happen. Please happen tonight. Yeah, that's
tonight.
Happen now. So, yeah, so that was story one.
That was the first one. Good one. Good fun. Story 2, Carl. It's not the biggest news article in the world, but an interesting topic to talk. And this is the fact that Cody Rhodes very recently was on Inside the Ropes with Kenny McIntosh, and he was talking about Triple H. And obviously they wanted to address the infamous, was it All Out or All In or whatever they fucking called it, when he got the sledgehammer and smashed the throne, which was a definite nod towards Triple H. And I think they were trying to hint, when speaking to him, about potentially some sort of animosity or whatever there. And he's made it very clear that he basically has a lot of respect for and really looks up to Triple H and sees him as a role model. He actually found him to be an inspiration, not just as a wrestler, but like as an executive, because obviously Cody Rhodes is trying to do a similar thing now to what Triple H was doing. And sort of Triple H has probably gone on to a different position since then, but it's certainly what he was doing when Rhodes was there. And he's sort of, it was a very interesting, again, Inside the Ropes with Kenny McIntosh, if anyone wants to listen to the actual interview rather than me talking about it. But it was a very interesting insight, because it even sort of not explicitly regrets the throne smashing thing, but he was just sort of like talking about the mentality around it, was like what would serve the biggest impact, and the sort of trash talk and having a pop at each other is just kind of part of the business, and he never really saw it as any disrespect to Triple H and that sort of thing. But it's fascinating, especially at this point in time, for him to start talking about respect to one of the basically people running a completely rival brand. So I found it a very interesting one. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I was surprised by this. For him to kind of say he meant no disrespect or whatever, by like literally he came out with a sledgehammer and broke a Triple H throne. Like, come on.
But I don't think it was like, because I can kind of get where he's coming from, because he was kind of breaking away from that, like, because he was part of like that whole like legacy thing, and like he was kind of breaking away from that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a direct thing that like, I hate Triple H, so I'm going to smash all this stuff up. I think in his head it just felt like breaking away from what he was and who he was sort of underneath. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they've got a proper interesting dynamic, these two, because if you think about it, a lot of the pain that is caused to Cody at the minute is directly because of Triple H. Like, the not being able to use the Great American Bash and stuff like this. It's because Triple H wants it in NXT. Him doing the Dusty Classic at the same time is an homage to Cody's dad, and we all know that Triple H and Dusty got along really well, and Triple H absolutely loved Dusty, and by all accounts, Triple H always offers an invite to both Cody and Dustin every time they do one of these Dusty Classics and stuff, in case they want to be there.
That's nice. That's nice to know.
So, do you know what I mean? It's just a weird one, because I think there's got to be that kind of professional rivalry, but it seems like deep down, Cody obviously has a lot of respect for him and for what he's done in the business and for what he maintains to do as an executive, and similar to his career.
Doesn't it just make the fandom even more baffling that even behind the scenes everyone gets along in the wrestling industry, and yet we're all hating each other over their business rivalries? It's insane.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But now I think it's because I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you could have a rivalry and not let it bleed over, but it's nice that they can sort of keep that separate, because they obviously do still have a lot of respect for each other, and it's baffling, isn't it?
It is. No, it really is. But yeah, I have to admit, I was surprised him coming out and saying, call him a role model and stuff. And I think he said that Triple H called him up after the birth of his daughter recently as well to congratulate him and stuff. So, it is really nice to see. And obviously, they're both. Their goal in both of their companies is to make the best company going and put on the best shows that they can. So it's nice to know that there isn't massive animosity there. So yeah, I was just surprised. Obviously, you see the throne breaking thing with the sledgehammer, and you think, okay, Cody's pretty much hates Triple H. So nice to know that that's not the case.
But it's weird, because I think that's probably I think even he can look back at it now and go, yeah, that was taken the wrong way. Do you know what I mean? But I do kind of get where he was trying to come from, because he's trying to break away from what he was and where he come from, which was, his biggest sort of mentor and role model, I suppose, in Triple H. So he's breaking free of it in a way. It kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it just seemed like a bit on the nose, didn't
it? Yeah, just a bit. But no, fascinating one. The next one, potentially also quite fascinating, potentially also a nothing story. So Braun Strowman had been pictured attending a bare knuckle boxing event last week in Tampa, Florida.
Was he running around the ring being a train?
He was just going raw, just flipping over cars and stuff in the parking lot. He was. It's really weird. But yeah, so he was basically pictured there. And he basically said that it was Dana Brooke and her now fiance who were responsible for getting him seats to the show. But Bare Knuckle FC, who were putting on the event, posted a picture on their official Twitter that basically said the next BKFC signee. And it was Braun with the president of the company kind of, doing a cool guy, handshake thing. So that led to a lot of speculation around, could we see Braun Strowman maybe, move into not mixed martial arts, but bare knuckle fighting? And he's since then kind of followed this up with, maybe a bit of trolling or whatever, but an eye emoji and just saying choices. So who knows?
I really don't want to mean any disrespect when I say this, but I think it's fair to say that appearance doesn't always necessarily talk about toughness, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying this is the case for Braun, but do you think he is someone who could be a legitimate fighter? He's definitely a big guy and he looks intimidating as fuck. But as you know from watching the UFC, Carl, sometimes it doesn't matter how big you are. If you can't take a punch, you can't take a punch. And I'm not saying Braun isn't a tough guy, but
he is Braun. Get him, Braun. Get him.
We've only ever seen him, or I've only ever seen him in obviously the strongman contest, which is totally different to fighting, or WWE, which is entertainment. So I'm curious whether that is an area that he would be interested in and he could do. We saw, and again, no disrespect to CM Punk, but we saw CM Punk try and go into a legitimate fighting arena, and it did not work out well.
Anthony disrespecting everybody without meaning any disrespect.
And also, what about this Jericho guy?
Isn't he fat? Have you seen all that come out again? Everyone's slating him. It's poor
People putting
Jericho.
up joke pictures of Jericho versus Gage on there.
Yeah. But no, I think to answer your question, I don't believe he's had any kind of boxing training that I'm aware of. I think he's always been, more using guns than his fists, which is ironic since his catchphrase was "Get these hands." So
should have been welcome to the gun show.
Oh no, don't. He'll have that one next wherever he rocks up. But I mean, it's an interesting one because you go to a heavyweight division and literally it only takes one punch, and obviously it's bare knuckle fighting as well. So you never know, if he's got a lot of power, it could turn out for him. But I don't think there's much in this. I think it's a lot of people speculating just the fact he was there, and the fact that there's been no kind of links to any other wrestling companies, and he hasn't done anything in terms of the bodybuilding world. So yeah, I think it's probably just conjecture at this point. But yeah, who knows?
So
crazier things have happened.
Is Braun's all show and no go? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying you want to get these hands, I'll have a better chance. I'm kidding. Don't get me, bro. So yeah. Just a bit of a short one and maybe a nothing story, but newsworthy nonetheless. Because what does it all mean? What does it all?
Or in clickbait terms, Braun Strowman's a bare knuckle boxer.
Click the video to find out. And while you're there, hit that notification bell. Yeah. I hate that.
So Carl, right? I've mentioned Nick Gage a couple of times so far, and it's not going to be the last time I mention him, but very recently, Carl, we had GCW Homecoming taking place, and we saw one Matt Cardona going up against Nick Gage in a matchup that you wouldn't typically expect Matt Cardona to be in. It was a very bloody affair and a very hardcore match, and this was for the GCW World Championship, which Nick Gage at the time held. But surprisingly, and the reason it's newsworthy, is Matt Cardona is the new GCW World Champion, and he had to. It was a fucking. It's the kind of heat I've not seen anyone get in a long fucking time, and apparently this is like it's all part of the plan. But the crowd fucking hated this result.
Yeah,
like throwing shit. He was just celebrating with his belt. I assume you've seen the videos going on the internet, Carl, but they are just throwing bottles and anything they can get their hands on. Just so displeased, and it's interesting to see how much love they had for Gage, but it's almost like this protection of like he's an outsider, he's not one of us, he shouldn't have that belt. And I'm just like, and don't be wrong, by all accounts, Matt's been lapping it up because he was going in to be the heel and he was going in to get that heat, and my God, did he get that heat. But on top of that, for the guy that we've seen in WWE for fucking years, how weird is it seeing him in this sort of capacity?
Yeah. I think anyone who is into Game Changer Wrestling or the hardcore wrestling scene, you can tell exactly why they reacted the way they did. Obviously, they hate anything shiny and polished and fake looking in any way. Like literally, if you go in the ring with Nick Gage, there's a very good chance you're gonna die. He actually like stopped breathing for like, I can't even remember how much it was at one point during a show, and they managed to revive him, and he just wanted to go back out there, and they wouldn't let him, and he's still fuming to this day. that was the only match he was ever been able to not kind of complete. So he is a fucking psychopath. He really is. So yeah. But this whole thing was fantastic. Like these guys started to have a bit of beef on Twitter like months ago. And no one ever thought anything would come from it. It was just kind of, he was like, who the fuck's Matt? Oh my God, I just found out he's this goofy Zack Ryder bitch or whatever. Like, they were having that back and forth. And then, it was just going on and on and on. And when it was announced, I was like, oh, holy shit. And yeah, my God, how brutal was it? I don't know if you managed to watch the whole thing or anything, but there was a point where I think it was on the superplex through the, the glass fucking shield. Cardona, like proper, had a deep incision in his arm.
Well, they actually they showed you the follow-up photos. I think I can't remember his Chelsea Green. Sorry, was patching him up, and his dressings were just covered in blood from that particular wound.
Yeah,
it was deep, man.
I thought they were gonna have to stop it. To be fair, like he was dripping. I thought, oh my god, he's like done an artery or something. But I mean, fair play to the guy. He's got some fucking balls, man. To go
Well,
in
I mean,
there.
to go from the guy who was like woo 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 in WWE to like this like fucking hardcore affair, you just wouldn't expect it.
Do you know what's
at all.
beautiful as well? I saw something, and apologies to whoever did it because I can't credit them, but somebody put something. It might have been on Twitter or Reddit or somewhere, and it was like the top 3 most over superstars in 2011, or like most talked about superstars in 2011. It was Bryan, Punk, and Zack Ryder. And now the most talked about this week are the same 3 individuals, and it's like that is just
Every 10 years.
So yeah,
And
but like
keeping up his troll work, he actually put up a tweet after the match as well, saying, I haven't slept, I'm at the airport, my back is still bleeding, I'm the new GCW Wrestling World Champ, and I'm flying to Disneyland.
And he actually went.
He did.
He went. He took the belt with him as well, which is fucking fantastic.
Well, even hashtag Deathmatch King, and I just love the fact that that's the guy that went to Disneyland. It's like, yeah.
I mean, the thing that scares me for him now is he's gonna have to lose that belt at some point.
Yeah.
So this isn't a one and done kind of deal.
No, he's gonna have to defend that for you.
Yeah. I don't think he probably thought this through, and he's only making it worse because next time the fans might just start attacking him from the offset, not even at the end of the match. So
it might be like the 24/7 title, and it's just going to be a lot of running, a lot of cardio.
But yeah, like fucking, like honestly, fair play to the dude. Like to go in there with Nick Gage, you've got to have some balls. Like, and madness the fact that he won it as well. Like, I'm surprised. It's got
anyone expected him to win. I really
it's
don't.
got so many eyeballs on the product as well, which is obviously great for them. But anyone who hasn't watched that episode of Dark Side of the Ring about Nick Gage and GCW, then definitely get on it because you can see like what it's all about and what they've all been through.
Really give you an idea of how hardcore it is, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it even shows you clips from that thing I was mentioning where he basically lost all that blood and basically went unconscious and like nearly like stopped breathing for a certain amount of time and stuff. So yeah, it's a fun watch, I'll say. Madness indeed. So the next one is a bit of sad news for Jeff Hardy, who has tested positive for COVID-19. So he was due to do an event at Record Bar, and it was these guys who announced it on their Facebook page that the event had to be cancelled because he had actually tested positive for COVID. Now, obviously what that meant was that he now has to isolate, and he's had to miss at least 1 week of Raw, probably 2 at a minimum, I would say. But it's an interesting time since he just kind of resurfaced. Is it this week? I think it's this week that we're talking about. Who knows? But he kind of resurfaced in the week that we're talking about. And with his new entrance, his old entrance music, but brought that back, and he picked up a spectacular win against an opponent we wouldn't expect him to pick up the win against. So interesting timing for him, unfortunately. But yeah, obviously, hopefully a speedy recovery for him, and hopefully,
indeed,
he was literally just working very recently, with other people in the company. So hopefully, it's a contained thing, and no one else
with any luck
comes down with it. So yeah, just a short one, but wishing Jeff Hardy a quick recovery and hope to see him back soon.
Indeed. So, Carl, next one I've got for you, and should be the type of thing that you'd definitely be all over. The WWE have announced a United States of America versus Vince McMahon series, and apparently this is going to cover the
the steroid trials.
Why do words escape me? Yes, steroids. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to cover all the controversy over the steroid trials many moons ago, and it's the Blumhouse team are going to be working on it. But it's interesting to know that it's a WWE product. I'm quite surprised at that. What do you make of the potential for this? Because surely there's going to be some negative towards Vince. So it's a controversial series to make, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was initially a bit I was excited when I heard it was coming out. I was a little bit, deflated when I found out it was in conjunction with WWE, just because, how much of the truth and stuff are we actually going to get.
That's the bit that gets me as well. Is like, well, because they're even clearly saying it. Oh, we're thrilled to be collaborating with WWE, and it's like, but that's the bit that stops you from being biased. Stops you from being unbiased, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, this would have been better if there wasn't an upcoming episode on Dark Side of the Ring about this as well, which they won't pull any punches. So, on the flip side to it though, I'll definitely check it out. It's going to be interesting to find a character playing Vince McMahon. I'm not sure whether anyone played him properly in Young Rock. I know he was in it. I don't know whether he had like a speaking role or anything like that, or whether we even saw his face. Because I kind of I'm not up to date with it. But if not, then this will be the first time anyone's ever played the character of Vince McMahon. So I'm excited to see who that is and what their portrayal of it will be. But anyone who was around during the steroid trials, or who at least has read up on them and seen what went on, we know it was a pretty brutal case, really, and it saw some of the biggest stars in WWE have to kind of step back and get out the limelight. Hulk Hogan was consistently targeted, was in a lot of media and press and talking about how there were no steroids in there and it's all just this, that, and the other. And we know from other kind of shoot interviews from wrestlers that it was kind of littered with steroids and stuff. So it'd be interesting to see what the take is on it in this TV show, really, and whether how true to life it is, because obviously this was an actual trial that happened, and if so they can't exactly come out now and go, oh yeah, it was full of steroids, because like what does that mean? So yeah, interesting.
You just wonder how generous they're going to be, don't you? Like, he was trying to fight back against all these false accusations and all this kind of stuff. But I just don't know. Like, it's a very controversial time for wrestling, that, because it was clear that a lot of that was going on, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the court case was around the knowing elements for Vince, wasn't it? Because there's always going to be people who work for him who were doing stuff that he probably didn't know about, but I think it was almost the expectation and the pressure to do so was the issue for it, wasn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of people who were former employees who basically said that it was strongly encouraged that they take them, and if they didn't, they would have lost their jobs and stuff like that. So yeah, it was kind of about the knowing and almost kind of trying to orchestrate people doing it by all accounts. Yeah. So yeah, I think to your point, it's going to be very interesting to see what take they have on it, whether it's kind of do a portrayal of like, oh, Vince McMahon saw the biggest threat to his company and he managed to overcome it all and blah blah blah, or whether it's more of an expose.
Yeah, but again, one to watch. I don't think we've got an official announced date yet, but certainly keep an eye out, guys. It'd be an interesting series, regardless of how they portray it, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. So the next one, just another quick one, but it looks as though Emi Sakura from the AEW Women's Division has actually joined the company full time now. So she's announced on Twitter over the previous few days that she's coming back to the US with a one-way ticket, and basically saying that she's made the decision to join AEW full time going forward. Now, we did see her in the tournament bracket, and I
think we were seeing a fair bit of her before the whole COVID situation as well, weren't we? It was kind of went quiet during COVID, and as you say, we had the tournament. But she I'm right in saying she was massive in the Joshi Pro side of things. Like, she's a legend in Japan, isn't she? She's huge over there. I don't even know what company she worked with or anything like that. But I know that she was really big over there, and I think at the time when they did the title eliminator bracket, I know that a lot of people were excited that she was in it and a part of it. So it's an interesting one, really. Obviously, the AEW Women's Division continues to grow, continues to improve with talent of both up-and-comers and veterans. And so, obviously, for her to come and bring her experience to the Women's Division seems like it can only be a good thing, really. So, let's face it, it's AEW's Women's Division is looking better and better with them officially signing the likes of Thunder Rosa and that as well, with the way they've been building up people like Britt Baker. But having an absolute legend join them full time and further bolster that is just going to be fantastic. And
yeah, definitely.
let's face it, I've said this for a long time. We knew their women's division was pretty shit starting out, and they've acknowledged that and they worked on it, and it's looking fucking good now. It's getting better and better.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you referenced Britt Baker then. Emi Sakura actually said in her tweet that she's looking at the top of the division and Britt Baker looks very interesting. So who knows whether that means she will come in and go, get some level of a push and be, right up there in the card or what. But yeah, I think it's obviously great news for her if that's the next step she's taken in her career, and who knows, what it might lead to as well, whether it's as an active roster for a couple of years or whether she maybe looks to transition into the coaching side as well, because obviously she's been quite known for that too. So,
Well, interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff. So here's one for you, Carl. Now, I knew I wasn't a massive fan of the whole gimmick for Nikki Cross, a current one, and admittedly, we'd not seen a lot of it, so I was more apprehensive than anything. But one thing I wouldn't do is fucking boo it out the building just for the gimmick. Because as we both said last week, we're absolutely made up she got a shot at the championship, and that she got the championship, right? Spoilers. But apparently, what's been happening now, since obviously everything that's gone on with a title winning that, on a couple of different house shows now, she's been almost sort of booed out the building. I don't want to exaggerate by saying booed out the building, but so we get a lot more negative reaction to her gimmick and her current run than I think WWE were expecting, which again is a real shame, because I'm thinking to myself, well, seeing is believing. You can't just go, well, that gimmick looks a bit silly, so I'm done with this now. You just have to wait and see, because I always go back to the likes of Hurricane, which you could have from a totally objective standpoint go, well, that looks silly, and then you get into the gimmick and you understand the comedic value behind it, and you're like, actually, that's pretty cool. And then they end up working with the likes of The Rock. You just don't know. But yeah, apparently it was Pittsburgh and Louisville, but it was, again, I don't know if it was in reaction to the superhero gimmick or genuinely in reaction to the title, the championship, but apparently they don't take it seriously, and she was booed. So, yeah, this is from a Meltzer report, by the way. So, who knows?
Oh, so it's completely false. No, it's an interesting one. I think what you've said there about the Hurricane is a fantastic point, and you look at these types of gimmicks. I think Damien Mizdow is another one. Where you look at it and it's like, oh, what? He's a stunt double. He's going to start doing moves on himself, like.
Yep.
People absolutely fell over themselves and in love with that gimmick. The same people who hate the stuff on the indies of where there's exploding bombs down people's pants and invisible people doing choke slams on you. But they love the stuntman gimmick. So fans are fickle, and for whatever reason, they've obviously looked at this and they're taking it at face value as like, oh, why is she a stupid superhero? Yada yada yada. But from seeing it on the actual Raw, and the kind of crowd reaction stuff, it doesn't seem to be that way. So interesting from a live event standpoint that the fans aren't super happy about it. But I mean, what do they want? More Charlotte and Rhea Ripley? Because we've had that for months. So it's
this is where I think that I mustn't be a true wrestling fan, because some of the stuff I just can't stand, people fucking love. And people love Charlotte no matter what. And I'm not thinking she's a very talented person, but I'm sick of seeing her in the title scene.
Yeah, it's boring. It's
literally everyone's expecting her to win the Queen of the Ring, and there's so many people who are like, and she should. And it's like, if Queen of the Ring happens, I don't want that. I don't want to see her win it, because why not use it to get someone over like you used to do with King of the Ring, for fuck's sake? She can't be any more over.
No,
there's no more over to be.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know, for me, for Nikki ASH, I think is something different. I'm not a huge fan of it, I won't lie. But
again, I think we've got to be honest with that, and I don't think either of us thought the gimmick, I don't think either of us were keen on the gimmick when we saw it. But, your Sandow reference is a really good shout, because I wasn't keen on that, and then you end up really enamoured with it when you see him pull it off. But exactly. You can't just look at it from the initial view. You have to wait and see what they do with that gimmick, because it's that classic chicken shit into chicken salad thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and the fact is, it's too early to tell. Like we saw it that first week, and we're like, oh no, what have they done? But if you look at
And
it,
it was some of it was
objectively,
probably a massive juxtaposition as well, because it's like literally just suddenly one week you're a superhero now.
exactly. So it kind of came out of nowhere, and obviously the track record that WWE have got, we know it typically doesn't end well. So that was a factor too. But you look at what they've done with it over what Nikki's done with it over the last couple of weeks, and it's not been bad at all, really. So it's kind of it's one of them. I'm still not completely enamored by it as a gimmick, but it's not. I'm not like cringing and stuff when it comes out. Not like Eva Marie. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's one of them. I think it's too early to tell, and obviously it's she's won. As we said, spoilers. She's won the women's title, which she's never managed to do with any of her other gimmicks. So there you go. It's got her a title win. So
exactly,
can't be all bad. So yeah. But either way, we're big fans of her, and we hope she does really well anyway. And yeah, Louisville and fucking wherever the other place was, get off her back, damn it.
I will be a fair person here, Carl, and I'll go back and correct myself and say that when I said heavily booed, Meltzer's made a good point of saying she was not heavily booed. She was booed, but not heavily booed. I read that incorrectly, so I will apologise for that one.
Oh, right, okay.
So still booed, but not as aggressively as I initially thought.
Right, okay. Interesting either way. Don't boo her. She's a good she's a face, isn't she? So if you're meant to cheer, damn it. That's how it works. Okay, so the next one to talk about, unfortunate piece of injury news, but hopefully one that isn't too severe, is that during the AEW Women's Championship match with Britt Baker taking on Nyla Rose at Fyter Fest Night 2, it appears Baker has broken her right wrist during the match, which is obviously not ideal. She was pictured with Paige Van Zandt at the bare knuckle boxing thing that Braun Strowman was at, funnily enough, and basically her arm was in a cast, but she's since gone on Twitter, obviously posted that picture and just said that obviously she retained the title on Dynamite with a broken wrist, and she's not taking any time off either, and still. So yeah, I don't know what that means.
I saw her every week when she was in a wheelchair, so I can't see her taking any time off.
No, well, exactly. But it would be a bit of a shame if she's out of in-ring action for a while, because
definitely,
she's had so long off, and obviously fucking Rebel got injured as well again, like in the ring recently too. So shame for both of them. What I did find was amusing, and not like I want to be clear when I say this, not at what's happened, but Chelsea Green had put in the comments back to Britt Baker. Like well, yeah, she basically put something like they can't keep us down, or something with like a laughy face, because she has also re-injured her wrist again, hasn't she? So
although I haven't read too much into it, so apologies if I'm slightly wrong here, but it sounds like almost not deliberately, but she almost knew that she weren't ready to go back in the ring and did it anyway in Chelsea's case, which wasn't ideal, but
yeah, I think it's one of them. She wanted to get back to it as soon as she could, which isn't the best idea. But yeah, hopefully the pair of them make a speedy recovery soon anyway. But interesting and good to know that Britt isn't planning to miss any TV time anyway. But it remains to be seen what impact it'll have on her in-ring work going forward.
Right, so the last one for me, Carl. Do you know that 3-hour-long Raw show that we have?
Mm-hmm.
And you go to yourself, 3 hours is just too much. What could they possibly use in 3 hours to fill that time? Well, one little thing they're putting in is the use of a Raw robot. I shit you not. So, what does that mean, I hear you ask? So, apparently, he's already been seen, and I think they've used him a lot more frequently on the upcoming episode of Raw that we've definitely not seen yet, Carl. And he's being used to introduce graphics for upcoming matches or bumper segments, or as the lead-in, like from commercial breaks, that sort of thing. But weirdly, WWE haven't even acknowledged the Raw robot yet that we're aware of. He's just kind of there now, and people have likened him to Fox Sports mascot, I believe Cletus the robot for Fox Sports. So it might be a Fox thing, but the robot, as he's being coined, can be seen on the show involved in the graphics and such like that, but they've not acknowledged that they've even got one, if that makes any sense. So you might have already seen it, but yeah, let's add some more silly graphics in. Why not?
I don't get their obsession with these fucking awful graphics.
We can.
But like, I honestly just don't understand it. There's some god awful like usage of this fucking technology, and it's ridiculous. And now, like, why even have a raw robot? What does that even mean? Why is he there? It makes no sense.
Because you get rid of that many announcers and backstage people, you might as well get some CGI robots to do all that for you.
I get it, because they fired everybody.
Eventually the wrestler will just be talking to himself, and then they'll CGI in the interview later.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Okay, I can see that happening. But it just seems like another bizarre move. For whatever reason, somebody in that company is like, maybe we should try some random stuff and see what shit sticks to the wall. Maybe this week we'll use sound effects.
I feel like they've got someone there who like literally had like a degree in like video graphics and was just like, I want to use it.
Yeah, what can I do? But like it is literally mental. Like they just trying random shit and just like surely this won't stick around. Like it can't do. Like what is the point of it? If it does, then I'm baffled. Crazy move.
Indeed. And that was the Ringside Report, Carl.
It was. Lots of stories, lots of news, lots of happy haps. And we'll be back to talk to you about Eddie Guerrero in our Superstar Spotlight, and also everything that happened in the previous week's wrestling. So we'll be back after this noise.
You're watching or listening
to A2theK.
The A2theK.
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 These guys are awesome. Check it out.
Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.